I do not know how you all feel on New Year's Day. However, or New Year's Day observed, whatever that might be, I feel like crap. Sorry, YouTube monetization for using a swear word. But I'm alive, made it back from Vegas with some money left in the wallet, so there's at least that. We're going to get into a little bit about Charles Barkley. We're going to get a little bit about what he said about the state of the NBA right now. So I wanted to do this clip a little bit earlier. I just didn't have time to get to it with UFC 207. Of course, some festivities going on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. But now that I'm back, Charles Barkley said the NBA is the worst it's ever been. And for more context, he said, quote, "If you look at the big picture, and this ain't no old guy hating on the young guys, the NBA to me is the worst it's ever been, top to bottom. We got one or two, three or four good teams, and the rest of these teams stink." I think it's great that TNT lets Charles Barkley say all these things. I think it's important that there are voices out in sports media, at least, that have the freedom to simply say whatever it might be, even though Charles Barkley couldn't be more wrong. Now, I do everything with Charles Barkley on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes he says the most harrowing, enlightening thing on that show on TNT, and other times he says stuff like this where I just get confused because there's been more teams that have won a championship. And yes, do we say what you want about LeBron being on Miami and Cleveland? It's still two different franchise-winning championships in this decade and in the 2000s compared to the three or four teams that ever won it in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, during Barkley's era, Jordan dominated everybody in the 90s. So, to him, I think he thinks that the teams when he was playing were better because he was playing, and he is hating on the young guys. A lot of it also has to do with the idea with the big man role is changing in the NBA, and Barkley doesn't like that. Barkley wants the big man role to go back to being back to the basket, Shaquille O'Neal, early 2000s, Patrick Ewing in the 90s, and the big force, Hakeem Olajuwon in the 90s, and the big force down low. He wants that back. But unfortunately, the NBA is changing. It's an ever-changing landscape, and we have these unicorns, as people are putting it, and guys like Porzingis and Towns, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, and guys that just who break the mold. And Barkley obviously doesn't like that. He likes his NBA more, which is fine. I don't really see anything wrong with that. But for him to say that it's the worst it's ever been because there's only three or four good teams, well, that means the 90s was just as bad. There was three or four good teams in the 90s. The Bulls made out of the East every single time until Jordan finally went away for about 2.5 years. And then he came back and they went back to the finals and won. And the Rockets won those 2 years that Jordan wasn't there. In the 2000s, I look at teams like the Dallas Mavericks, not even that long ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It's 2017, 6 years ago. That's a team that broke the mold. So I get that maybe he's not kind of referencing 6 years ago. He's referencing right now and the fact that it's probably the Warriors and the Cavs that are going to make the finals again. But I don't see how that's a problem. That's just my opinion. So a lot of people look at it and go, I don't want to see the Cavs and the Warriors play a third time. Well, those people are probably the same people who were getting polled by news sources like CNN during the election. Because those are the same people who still tune in by the masses and break ratings for the NBA Finals. So, when it's the highest rated finals in NBA history again this year, when the likely Cavs play the Warriors for a rubber match for a third time, I think it's must watch basketball. I don't see a problem with it. I take it next year too. But we have players in the league that are exciting to watch even if their teams aren't great. The Russell Westbrooks of the world, maybe the most entertaining player in basketball, chasing history as a storyline. The Raptors' backcourt is continuing to get more dominant. Kyle Lowry had, 41, 9, and 7 the other day. DeMar DeRozan's still averaging in the upper 20s in points per game, proving me and a lot of people wrong when it comes to his contract. This the Kawhi Leonard's transcendent transition defense that we have never seen before. Joel Embiid's rise to being a guy who could have been one of the biggest draft busts because of injury and becoming and setting Hakeem Olajuwon-like numbers as a rookie in his per 36-minute numbers. I mean, I don't need to explain. James Harden's 50-something points, 17-something assists, and 78-something rebounds when he led the league. I mean, obviously it wasn't 70. I'm exaggerating at that point by a lot. But he had a 50, 15, and 15-plus game, I think, on New Year's Eve. I don't know what he's talking about when he says that the NBA is the worst it's ever been. I'm not going to claim it's the best it's ever been, but it ain't no different now than it was in the 90s. In terms of style of play, it's different, but in terms of how many great teams there are, no different. Not at all. So I'm short-tempered. I really do feel like garbage. Sore throat, nose running. I know there was a cold going around the office in general heading into New Year's Eve. I thought I escaped it, but I think it's coming. It's come to haunt me. But other than that, we'll see you next time.